Hello everyone, welcome back to the Kirklees Podcast. In today's episode we discuss guitar harmonies, what's in our gig bag, take some questions from his audience and discuss players that inspired us. Stick around, it's going to be a good one. Hello everyone, welcome back to the Kirklees Podcast episode 11. I'm joined with my co-host, Mr. George Loveridge. How you doing, George?
I'm not so bad, James. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. Was this week a rock or a roll?
It was a rock. We've had a week off.
We have.
In the Easter break, so we're now 2 weeks behind rather than 3 weeks behind. So yeah, it's been a rock. What have I done this week? I was able to use that cheap Bluetooth speaker, did a bit of a road trip. So it was loud enough for music, not for podcasts, which was really annoying. So I was trying to listen to not this show, but other shows, and I was straining to hear what they were saying. So that was annoying.
What was it? Just tell us listeners what you've been up to.
Okay, so I went and did a track day down in Wiltshire. So I covered 500 miles in 2 days for that in a 70-year-old vehicle, which is a Morgan. So that was fun. And my ears genuinely didn't stop ringing till I got back Tuesday night. My ears were still ringing Friday. Which is not cool. It's not good. But then as part of that, there's a long reason behind this, but we get to go and spend some time with Nick Mason, the drummer of Pink Floyd. So I've known Nick for about 5 years now, which is quite a strange, 6 years, 2019. Yeah, really cool. Had a quick chat with him. It's really hard not to talk music because we're there for cars and everyone talks to him about music. I could turn into a teenage girl very quickly. But yeah, linking on to that, tonight I'm going to see in the cinema Pink Floyd live at Pompeii. They've remastered that in 4K, 8K Dolby cinema style.
Where's that?
That's the Odeon in Huddersfield.
Really?
I booked it in March. And I mentioned this to Nick. I said, and I look forward to seeing you at Pompeii in April. And he said, I don't know why you go and watch our silly mistakes from 50 years ago. But yeah, looking forward to that because I've never seen all of the Pompeii clips. You've probably seen them on YouTube.
That's really funny because I keep seeing little clips of it on YouTube.
Yeah, they probably sponsored it. It's in your algorithm.
Yeah. And I'm like, and I was just thinking, funnily, last night, it's like I should probably sit and watch all of that because it seems like a big deal. So, right, okay.
That'd be cool.
Excellent.
And then the other part of this week, when you were off last week, I taught some of your groups. So it was nice to meet some of you that we've not met before. We've met online through the group. So nice to do some groups. Different perspective for me as a tutor doing groups rather than one-to-ones. So what about you? Rock or roll?
I forget what was the term for neither rock nor roll.
Stroll. Yes, someone in the comments said stroll. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, so I took a week off. In inverted commas, a week off, which just involved a load of dad jobs at home, getting caught up, gardening, sorting cars out, one thing or another. So not in the 10 days I took off, because the weekend either side of it, I think the Les Paul came out of the case for about 3 minutes.
Okay.
And then my son tried to dribble all over it. So it went back in the case and back upstairs.
Good taste, obviously. He loves the Les Paul.
So yeah, I'm not... Yeah, my son's won, by the way. He's not.
Yeah,
but yeah, not a lot, to be honest. Just a week, and I'm sort of excited to sort of get back to it. But having that week off has enabled us to have a week off the podcast, which means we're not as far removed from the people watching it now. Yeah. So hopefully, not being as prepared and being 2 weeks in front instead of 3 weeks in front is going to be a little bit better for everybody.
Definitely. At the start, we thought 3 weeks would be great, but then say, Mark, I know you watch. Hello, Mark. You'll mention something from the podcast and I'll go, oh, that was 3 weeks ago. Let me just try and think. So it's nice that we're a bit closer, a bit more relevant.
But the format's working.
It is.
And we're very consistent with it, aren't we? So we can be a little bit closer to the wire.
Yeah.
So, right, what's on the agenda for this week?
So the set list then, back into old habits. We're going neck deep, first of all. We're looking at gig bag essentials. It doesn't have to be gig bag necessarily if you're going out, but just in your case, when you're coming to lessons or just around the house, what should you have in your gig bag? From there, we're looking at our technical focus. This week is guitar harmonies. So you've probably heard of vocal harmonies before, in nearly every song you've ever heard, but guitar harmonies, think Iron Maiden, think Phil Lynott and Gary Moore, that sort of stuff. Thin Lizzy, there we go.
Thin Lizzy, yeah.
Many more examples. We'll look at two of them. We've then got tone talk, players who inspired us to play guitar. We haven't spoken about this. I'm still unsure because there are so many players I steal from and still do. Then we've got Pick Our Brains, 2 more audience questions from there. And then we'll also have the riff of the week.
Which is Rebel.
Rebel.
Boy. So
cool.
we're going to have a look at that one because it's a fun one to play.
Yeah, definitely.
Excellent. Right then, so what's in your gig bag, George?
So in my gig, it's just to the right of me, down there out of shot. I know yours is in shot. To the right of me is actually a Gretsch case. I used to have a Gretsch G2622T, which looks like...
It's easy for you to say.
Yeah. It's actually the password to one of my social medias that I don't use anymore. I started it when I was 16, and that was the best guitar in the world. I sold it a few years ago. But
and it's no longer any password.
No, it's not. At the time, I was like, no one's going to guess this G2622T. That thing of Chuck Berry, E35, 335, kind of like that budget version, not as chunky as a Brian Setzer Gretsch. Anyway, the reason I use that because the case was £100 for a soft case, padded soft case. But being a Gretsch case, it was slightly taller because it had a bigger scale length, hence bigger pockets, more gig bag materials. So when I go out to a gig, now that bag I use for gigs and teaching. So the main things I've got 2 capos, one for me, one for a student, if they haven't got one. I've got a Phillips screwdriver. I'm dear the constabulary. It's not for anything serious. Bits like to fall off these guitars every now and again. Mm-hmm. I should have a 10mm spanner or a socket for input jacks as well, but usually stuff just needs adjusting. I adjusted a student's guitar yesterday, actually. Their G string on their acoustic was to the point where they couldn't actually tune the guitar. It was too tight. Out came the screwdriver, adjust, we can now tune it. Then got a tuner, a plug-in tuner. This is a godsend at our gigs.
Yes.
Because you can plug this into the guitar and it's got the little display and it doesn't matter if it's 1,000 decibels outside the guitar, it'll still help you tune.
And that plugs directly into the jack,
the guitar,
doesn't it?
yeah,
Whereas you compare,
jack.
I've got this little TC Polytune. These are great little tuners, but this works on vibration. And sometimes when we're backstage doing the KGS gigs,
Not happening.
And there's a band playing literally on the other side of the wall because there's green rooms always on the back of the stage, and this will be going crazy. Whereas yours is a godsend.
Yeah. So other than that, what else have I got? I've got a spare lead in there when I'm gigging. I always take 2 leads. Always take 2 leads. A 9-volt battery for my acoustic. I take that. Spares. I'm a bit of a grandma. There's a pack of tissues. Again, carrying on with that theme. Packet of soothers. Now, that's just for me teaching. We've both been there. You're trying to teach a lesson and you just can't shift something in your throat.
I've really noticed that with the groups. Now we do a lot more group lessons here. I always have a packet on the go because I'll lose my voice before the end of the day.
Yeah, it happens.
It's not that I'm shouting at the classes, but to talk over 6 guitars over one, you've got to...
It's elevated intonation, isn't it? Projection, rather.
That's really eloquent. I don't think I could say that.
Just shouting. That's it, yeah.
Yeah, just shouting.
What else is in there? Yeah, you've done... See, I'm still got a couple of gigs coming up now, which confirmed now. I mentioned that the other
right,
week.
that's good. Yeah, I was wondering about that the other day.
First one of which is an exclusively Motown for a birthday party. So I'm getting my bum kicked by a lot of Motown songs.
Yeah, good.
Yeah, other than that, there's not much more in my gig bag, apart from, your obviously spare leads and stuff. Different gigs, different scenarios. Mm-hmm. I'm obviously not going to take a spare set of electric strings for an acoustic gig. I will have spare strings for that appropriate guitar. So it will cycle, but you've been on the circuit a lot more than I have. Mm-hmm. We used to do a lot of Motown stuff, Frankie Valli.
Yeah, and I've started sort of following on from a couple of episodes ago. My diary's starting to get filled up again now. Nice. I'm starting to do quite a few because I had a bit of a break from gigs last summer, but I'm looking into this summer and I've got quite a few. But I'm sort of chasing the kind of more higher profile, goods, less gigs but better quality.
Yeah,
gigs. So yeah, I'm getting ready to go out on the road again this summer. So I think my first one's in May, out with the Northern Live guys. So I have a gig bag. This gig bag I've had probably 15 years. I've had this gig bag.
Get what you pay for.
Yes, it was very, 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 very expensive when I first bought it. It's called a mono gig bag. Now, the advertising for this gig bag, they actually challenged you to put your guitar in it and stand in the shower and turn it on, and they were confident that your guitar would not get wet.
Wow,
and you get your money back guarantee. So I bought one. Now, it's always amazed me with students how they will buy a £1,000 guitar, a £1,500 guitar.
Put it in a bin liner.
Or,
effectively.
Or a £10 gig bag off Amazon. We like a good car analogy. You won't put budget tyres on a Ferrari.
Yep.
Would you? If you have a nice vehicle, you've got an obligation to look after it and do the thing. Same
with your guitar.
Guitars are the same. So although the gig bag, it was quite expensive. It was £200.
And back then,
all that time ago. And And it
Well,
was
just not in terms of inflation, but in terms of a Saturday job and 5 or 6 students that you had.
correct.
That's
It
a
was
lot.
it was a big investment, but also my first students, as we've spoken about before, I used to walk to the houses. I needed a decent gig bag, and a hard case wasn't an option.
I actually remember when you had your bike and that seeing you coming up my road with that on your
That's
back.
correct. Yeah, I used to ride a motorbike as well.
Yeah.
Before I got my car license. Yeah, I used to drive to college with
And
a
that-
guitar.
that was on your
ride to
back?
college. Yes,
That
it
case,
was.
yeah.
So I've had this for a long time, and it's done a lot of gigs. My approach to this case only ever leaves here when it's going to a gig, because I'm fortunate enough where the vast majority of my guitars stay at my place of work because this is where they get the most use.
Yeah.
So this case only leaves the house the studio when we're doing things. Now, the vast majority of my cables and day-to-day kind of consumables live in my pedal board case. My cables, my pedals, power lead for the amplifier. So I tend to have pedal board, amplifier, gig bag. So if I'm hypothetically parking at an NCP car park and have to walk across the city centre, I've got everything. I can carry everything in one trip. The bags on my the pockets on my gig bag are for spares and for extras. So I thought I'd brag it on the set, and I'll show you, because literally it's just, what have we got? Capo, in case I need it. I try not to play with the capo most of the time.
Yes, so do I.
But occasionally there's certain songs, something like Fast Car by Tracy Chapman. You've got you need a capo to make that possible. So I have a capo. In-ear monitors.
Oh,
Now these are essentially posh earphones, like earbuds that you'd get with an iPhone. But rather than having, when you're playing on stage, rather than having a speaker on the floor, you can have these. You can have the sound cast to your earbuds. These are really high quality earbuds.
now could I just demystify? Am I right in thinking in-ears? I've never used them, but I know lots of players have used them. You don't get everything on stage. Some bands might have a click in their ear. They might have a little bit of guitar and all vocal. Or do you prefer to have everything as if it was a real monitor?
I have everything except the drum kit. That's my preferred
Because you can
mix.
feel that.
Well, I'm stood next to the drummer.
Yeah.
I'm stood next to the drummer, and I sort of ask for a general mix minus the drums.
Okay.
Everybody's different, but that enables everybody on stage to get exactly what they need, and then you don't have to sort of share a monitor mix with anybody else. You're not stepping on anybody's toes. You can be really selfish and get exactly what you need, which I argue makes you perform better.
100%.
They are excellent when they work, but when they don't, it's the most frustrating thing ever. So, in-ear
There we go.
monitors. Strap. I always have a strap, and I always have a... I'll try to get this out without bashing the microphone.
Can you tell what it is yet? Or we can't use that?
No, you can't.
Whoops. Culture
There's
reference.
a spare strap in the bottom,
Okay.
but I always take 2 straps. I'll always have one in the bag, one that lives with the guitar, so I like these Heisterkamp straps.
Yes.
Very, very good straps. I've got one from SG as well. And then I have a spare one just in case, because sometimes I like to, you might see in some videos occasionally where this is sort of wrapped up on top of an amplifier, and I've used it and I've forgotten to put it back in my gig bag.
Yeah.
So I always have a spare, because I have had to do a Pete Townsend once, and we can't say that either, can we? But where I've had to play with no straps, so really important. I have a preamp, so that's what
little Behringer unit.
that's what my in-ear monitors plug into, and then the sound man sends me an XLR.
Okay.
Most sound men have these, but I know this one. I know it's
works.
working. I know it's mine, but I also know that the batteries aren't going to let me down because I change them for every gig.
Yeah.
And whenever possible, I like to try and lean on my own stuff as much as possible, because then I've only got myself to blame when it lets me down.
Yeah.
And I've got a various... Rather than 9-volt batteries for pedals, I just have a single 9-volt power adapter for... Because say my pedal board breaks mid-set and I don't have time to rewire it all, I will literally take the SD one off the board, plug it
straight in there.
and ready to go. Finally...
Oh,
Yeah.
bit of ZZ Top, Sharp Dress Man.
This is my get out of jail free
If
time.
you forget it.
I'm terrible at remembering, because certain bands, most of the stuff that I play for, bar kind of the Rockefeller gigs, I've got to be suited and booted to do. And ties are one of those things that I always forget, so I always have one in my gig bag ready to go.
Very sensible.
And then you've got the usual like you, tissues, headache tablets, things like that.
Yeah, I was going to say I've got some paracetamol, yeah.
Yeah, and just the kind of stuff, it's almost like it's what I'd imagine anybody kind of has in their work bag. It's just the stuff that's going to sort of get you out of stuck occasionally. And probably the last thing, it's at the bottom of the bag, so I'm not going to fish it out, but I've got like a little XLR connector that turns a jack into an XLR.
Oh, really handy, yeah.
Those, I've only ever had to use it once, but the one time I did have to use it, it saved the gig. Mm-hmm. So that's sort of my attitude towards it. You don't want to carry everything but the kitchen sink, but also at the same time you want to be as prepared as possible, and so that you can do your job and you can do it effectively.
Yeah, you mentioned something saving the gig. We once hosted a open mic night just before COVID, like literally 2 weeks before the pandemic. And my partner in her microphone bag, she's got a different bag for her needs as a musician. She's got one of those. It was a lightning to aux connector, because when iPhone got rid of the aux, everyone cried
lost their mind, didn't they?
And lost their money because they had to buy it. But she has one of those connectors, and of course we did our set before the open mic. But of course, open mic nights, there's a lot of downtime in between acts. We needed some house music, and we only had a 6.3 millimeter from the desk. So luckily we had that adapter, so we could have some nice chill music on in between the acts. And I wouldn't say it didn't make or break the gig, but it was really handy having that spare cable.
Bit of normalcy. So,
yeah,
gig bags. What's in your bag?
That's it. Yeah, let us know. Comment. Not saying go and fill your baskets at Thomann or at Amazon, but just think if you're out and about with your guitar quite a lot, whether it's here doing sessions, be prepared.
I think at absolute minimum, couple of picks, packet of strings.
Yeah.
And if you're feeling really keen, a string winder.
Oh, yeah, fair enough. I'd rather just turn it myself, but it does help you out.
Very good.
But right, I had it in, before we move on, my band here, the band I rehearse with here, within about 10 seconds we had 2 strings snap on a song. One gentleman, his string snapped, and the whole band stopped to laugh at him. Meanwhile, 10 seconds later, another string popped at the bridge. Never seen it happen before.
Have you not?
It just completely frayed at the bridge.
Same guitar?
2 different guitars.
2 different guitars.
So one was a Yamaha Strat, and the other one was a Fender left hooker Telecaster. And within 10 seconds, 2 strings went.
Very good. Right, shall we move on then?
Yeah, we will. So our technical focus this week, we've got guitar harmonies. The magic of guitar harmonies. Do you want to take the lead initially?
So a harmony, take the lead. I see what you did there. So a guitar harmony, when we talk about harmonies in guitars, we're talking about two guitar parts playing simultaneously, but they're playing different notes to create little chords.
Yeah.
So rather than if me and George were playing and the notes were C, D, E, F, G.
Yeah.
Can you just play that for me? C, D, E. Now, if I count to 4, George, and we play that at the same time. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, that's called playing in unison because we're playing C, D, E, F, G at the same time. We'll try that again, George, but I'm going to play some different notes now.
Okay.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Oh, we're carrying on through the scale, yeah. Oh, okay, interesting. That sounds cool.
That sounded different, didn't it?
Yeah.
So what I'm doing there is I'm playing another note on top of George's pre-existing C, D, E, F, G, and then we're creating like little baby chords between us.
A chord has to have your root note and at least a major third or a perfect fifth. We need 2 notes.
And we've spoken about this before, the root, the third, the fifth of chords. The vast majority of harmonies that we're going to discuss today anyway are using what we call the thirds.
Yep.
So what that means is George played C, D, E, F, G. I started on the 3rd note of the C major scale, C, D, E. And I played E, F, G, A, B, C.
It's back to your octave, yeah.
Back to your root. And what that does is it creates little baby chords. You can do that yourself.
Well, you did it in a lesson, those Dark Brown Eyed Girl. Yeah, you've got 2 notes stacked on top of each other.
Now, I describe those as dyads,
yes.
Whereas if you're playing lead guitar and you're both sharing the load of that, I'd call that a harmony as opposed to a dyad. Yeah, when you've got 2 guitars. When 2 people are playing.
You can get away with harmonies on their own, but sometimes they're spread a bit further, as we'll look now, to the point where you can't play them at the same time.
So who were good guitarists to kind of bounce off for?
Thin Lizzy.
Yes.
Really piloted harmonies.
Boys Are Back in Town is full of it.
Yeah, Do Anything You Want to Do with the timpani introduction. Not many people know that. Yeah, cracking stuff. They were really clever for that sort of stuff. You need minimum 2 guitars, ideally 3 in a live scenario, because you've got 2 guitars doing the live, the harmony, but then you need some chords behind it to give it a bit of support.
Yeah. Well, Thin Lizzy were, that were their claim to fame, that they had 2 lead guitarists. That was the, but also I think the way Phil Lynott played the bass was very guitar.
It was like Lemmy.
That really helped. Yeah, yeah. So first time I came across guitar harmonies and I heard that sound, I was like, I was really into one of the first bands. This will tie into later on, but it's not the band. But Iron Maiden. I heard Iron Maiden for the first time and I thought it was the coolest thing I'd ever heard. And then I saw the artwork and the covers and it just solidified, all the sort of artwork with Eddie and all the different album covers.
I bet if you had a fringe, you'd have pulled it in front of your eyes and done that.
Yeah, back when I had hair. But that kind of guitar playing is, that kind of music is full of it. Things like The Trooper is a great example. Could we show the audience?
The Trooper is, you'll recognise it if you don't know the title. That's got a harmony on it as well. It plays that once. Now, there's some of the Iron Maiden songs that don't have harmonies in, like Run to the Hills.
Yeah.
That doesn't does it?
The
solo doesn't have it anyway, but yeah.
That can be played.
Oh, yeah, okay. Anyway, so yeah, back to The Trooper. The verse, do you want to play me the... Yeah.
Do that again.
Yeah. So it always works better if one guitar starts, because you condition to that, oh yeah, that's the riff, and then you kickstart.
And you think of it as layers, know? And then another thing Maiden's known for is the
chugs,
all that galloping stuff, which
you take my life and I'll take yours too.
That's it. I think it's a topic for another day. Is that sort of chugging thing, because a lot of people struggle with it. So that's a really good example. But sort of let's take it out of the metal. Well, it's not. It's heavy rock,
hard, driving rock, yeah.
Take it out of that. That sort of sphere, and who else uses harmonies?
We've used Beatles have got them, and Joe Bird can sing. Yes. George Harrison, wow, that is a monster because he plays it on his own.
Yeah,
but it's a lot easier if you do it too. We could sit and rattle off people who play them, but in a more sort of rock and pop, we love to use it. Run to You, Bryan Adams in the solo. Now that's clever because it plays one line of the solo, just one guitar. Then it repeats the second time round. We add a second guitar, playing the harmonies. Now this is a combination of thirds and fifths. And that's something to point out with the Trooper as well. When James did that C major scale example, they were all nice thirds packaged up together. Doesn't always move the same way, because you could try and work out a harmony on your own little melody line, and you think, right, I've got a third. You might have your... It needs to change to a minor eventually.
Yeah, it depends on where it sits in the scale. So, okay, well, let's have a look at that first, and then we'll circle back to Bryan Adams. So a really usable way to practice this is, rather than using pentatonic scales, because for this to work, you need to have a scale, either a major or a minor scale, with all 7 notes back to back for this to work. So rather than using E minor pentatonic, we're going to use E natural minor.
Okay,
It's just the minor pentatonic with 2 extra notes added in. For those of you at the back, that's an E, F sharp, G, A, B, C, D, E. And that's repeated over 2 octaves. Now, George is going to play that for me, and he's going to start from the E note. So you're going to go E, F sharp, G, etc. I'm going to start from the 3rd note in that scale and just carry on.
So you're playing the thirds all the way through.
So I will be playing, while George is playing an E, I'm going to be playing the 15th fret on a G.
Yeah.
George is going to move to the 14th fret, which is an F sharp. I'm going to be playing an A.
Now that's a minor third, isn't it? The G.
Correct.
In this instance.
Yes. Yeah. So let's see what that sounds like, because I think with major scales, it can sound a little bit
it's
cheesy.
too happy.
Yeah, it's too happy. Whereas with minor scales, I think especially like the kind of angle that we're going on and the kind of guitar players that we like to listen to and the kind of guitar players that use this, a lot of it is minor scales.
Reeling in the years. That's another one. So that's all major. That's all.
Yes.
The whole. All of that.
Anyway,
we're getting away from it again. Ready? 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, I didn't know we were carrying on.
Let's go all the way. Let's go all the way.
Let's go all the way.
1, 2, 3, 4.
It's a bit Jessica, the Allman Brothers.
I was just going to say that, yeah. So that's how, but you can hear how we're climbing through the upper register of that scale, and it's just like
magic.
It's reaching that sort of, that I don't know the best way to put it. That sort of crescendo at the end. It's
building up to it.
Yeah, it's building up to this big kind of release at the end, which guys like Thin Lizzy, used a lot. So let's jump into Run to You then. So
yeah, so James, I'm going to play the harmony.
Yep.
You play the normal, so you're hammering on to the 7. So we're doing it in the key of the record, despite not having a capo.
Okay.
So if you go around it once,
Yep.
I'll join in and see how it sort of we're playing different notes, but they all lock together.
Mm-hmm.
One, 2, 3, 4. Then it carries on from there. That's nice.
It's cool, isn't it?
It's really cool.
Really satisfying. And like I've known how to play guitar like this for a long time, and it's still as satisfying as the first time that I did it.
I've gigged that song for years, but now 99% of my gigs I'm on my own acoustically. We do Run to You. You can just about. Now, if you're watching, I can't use my pick for that. I'm hiding it away in my knuckle. I'm grabbing 2 notes at once. You can't pick 2 notes at once on different strings that aren't next to each other. So some harmonies you can do at the same time.
Yeah.
On your own, but it's nice to have a friend to play them.
Excellent. So Harmonies, have a go, guys. It's really, really, really good fun, and it's a nice little break from the regular. So
yeah. Now, if you look at tabs that aren't in our universe, which you should never do, some of them, a certain one that's blue and begins with an S and ends in Ongster, you can look at. They have the tabs for both counterparts. So you could say, if you look at the Trooper, you could look at the main tab, and then the harmony tab, and you can play along to the track and hear the benefits of both sides.
Tone talk,
yes.
Then. So you put this on the crib sheet.
I did.
Players or player who inspired you?
For me, if I'm all right to start, it is definitely players who inspired me. Now, we've got the same name, but I enjoyed music when I was younger, but the Beatles were the first band that really made me switch on to guitar playing. And I like to see that in my own students, because when you're young, you don't really listen to music, but then eventually there's something that clicks and you take off. So the Beatles, for me, did it. And George Harrison, again, we've got the same name, but the way he played stuff and approached things, he was what made me notice you've got 2 guitars, but they're not doing the same thing.
Yes. So
that was really cool. I'm not going to embarrass myself playing anything of his early stuff, but some of the early solos, like massive Beatles fan, but all the names escape me now, but all of his stuff, his hybrid picking and stuff, was he just lucky or was he that good? He really, really inspired me to play a little bit more and learn all this, like Day Tripper, Ticket to Ride, I Feel Fine, learn all those cool riffs from the early Beatles. But then another player that really made me think about playing differently. This is about 2018. I was always been a Queen fan. Queen Greatest Hits was the first CD I ever bought from HMV in Huddersfield. It was £9, which at the time was all the money in the world to me. But Brian May, the way he plays stuff like that, Hammer to Fall, all his sus chords especially. It's not necessarily his lead because I can't keep up to his finger work in his prime, But all that sort of, all of that kind of stuff, all the sus chords, especially his rhythm work is really underrated. He's like, everyone tries to play the, like me, tries to play Bohemian Rhapsody, but the backing work is really clever, I think. So for me, Brian May and George Harrison are two players that really made me think about the guitar. Rather than just learning for the sake of it, they made me want to study them a little bit and borrow ideas.
Okay.
You then get B.B. King and all sorts of licks and Stevie Ray Vaughan, but those two players for me are people I really look up to.
I've kind of got two categories of player for this. So I've also got two players. The first player, a little bit of a curveball, is Kurt Cobain from Nirvana.
Okay.
So I heard Nirvana for the first time, and I just like, what is this? This is awesome, and that's what made me want to start learning to play the guitar. Now I'm really glad that I learned all of those songs, and I pretty much learned every Nirvana song
in the
back to back. Yeah, that kind of guitar playing is full of bar chords, but it's full of bar chords with a lot of distortion and quite messy in its nature, which meant that I didn't have to try very hard to get that.
Okay,
and I'm not saying Kurt Cobain's a bad guitar player. Awesome songwriter, great guitar player. But as 13-year-old James trying to figure out what he was doing on those records, I could be playing bar chords with loads of distortion. And if I'm fluffing 3 of the 6 notes, it doesn't really matter because I couldn't really hear it. In my naive teenage brain, I'm like, this is great. This sounds just like it.
Yeah.
So I feel like that's why I've got such a good grip on bar chords and so mobile around the neck, is because I learned to play all those songs, which the vast majority of them were bar chords, not cowboy chords. So I spent a lot of time early on, and I had to just get bar chords because I couldn't get those chords otherwise.
Well, that's one thing. Lennon couldn't play bar chords very well. Yeah. And Harrison, you look at that sort of stuff is something I borrowed. But yeah, playing full fat bar chords. Yeah. And Lennon would play the jangly stuff anyway. Sorry, yeah.
I just want to caveat this with, if you're hearing some noise in the background, where a tree surgeon's rocked up across the car park.
Of course he is.
And has decided he's going to cut down the Amazon rainforest that's bordering his car park literally within the 20 minutes that we've got left to do this show. Yep. So if you hear a lot of chainsaws and things going on in the background, I do apologise, but we'd rather have it in and do the show rather than just scrap it and miss a week. So thank you for your patience. There he is.
There he is. So
maybe he wants to join in. You know, like Paul Gilbert has the Makita drills. Does that. Maybe that's his thing, and he just wants it on.
So within our heart-shaped box, you're talking about Nirvana.
Yes. Nirvana, Kurt Cobain's playing was really, really influential on me, and I'm sort of going back down that rabbit hole at the minute in my own playing, just out of interest. Stevie Ray Vaughan is the next guitar player that I was just like, yes.
All the yes.
All the yeses. E-flat tuning, Strat, Fender amp turned up to 11, and just what I like about Stevie Ray Vaughan, obviously, excellent songwriter, killer guitar player, but it's the attitude that he plays with. I remember seeing an interview with a guitar magazine in the 80s that was posted on YouTube of him talking about a song that he does called Rude Mood.
I've not heard that one.
Right, so you will have done. You just won't know what it's called, but it's called Rude Mood. And the interviewer was like, "Why is that song called Rude Mood?" It's like, it just sounds like, when I'm playing it sounds like I'm annoyed.
Yeah,
the way that he'd play all the little, you could hear the gusto and the attack and the sort of the passion, for lack of a better term, in what he was playing. But then you hear something like Riviera Paradise or Lenny, and it's polar opposite. It's really smooth, really, you can still tell that he's playing that Stratocaster at 1,000,000 decibels, but he's tickling it.
Well, you
really like how hard you're playing the guitar through a loud amplifier. It really kind of amplifies, for lack of a better term. What you're doing.
He's got Cold Shot, which in the verse is very, but then he really.
But just watching you play that,
you give it some stick.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people watch me play at the studio and say, why don't I sound like that? And it's just the sheer amount
Giving
of gusto that I'm giving the guitar. But I've got the confidence to be able to do it without busting a string.
I say to a lot of students, sounds great, give it some more oomph.
Mm-hmm.
If we're doing Hyper It to Riot, say, and you're playing that riff, you need that. You need to give it a bit more oomph.
Give it some pasty.
Yeah, that's it.
So, yeah, those are my two players.
So Stevie Ray Vaughan and Kurt Cobain.
Kurt Cobain.
I wouldn't have expected Cobain from you, really.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, I've been listening to, Heart Shaped Box, and is it No More Apologies or that really
All
steady?
Apologies.
All Apologies, yeah, really nice tune.
Mm-hmm.
I really like it when a heavy band plays something steady.
Yeah, they do a song called Something in the Way.
Yeah.
And I think it's the most, and it's not even like, I don't know how to describe it. It's not really, the lyrics don't really lead on to too much, but it makes me feel really sad.
There's a Beatles reference in there, isn't it? I know Kurt Cobain was a big Beatles fan.
Yeah, I don't know off the top of my head, but
Something in the Way.
You Know Your Rights, one of my favourite songs ever, which was the last one they recorded before he died, and that's an awesome song. So anyway, right, getting off piece. Let's get back on track.
Pick our brains then.
Yeah, we've got a couple of questions from our audience. So I'll back the first one to you,
Certainly.
if that's right. So this is Gareth. Gareth asks
Gareth.
in the Facebook group. Hello, Gareth. When talking about 1-4-5 chord progressions, how would you work out which chords are in those sequences? What about the sharps and the flats?
Cool. Right, Gareth. I think we're both admins in the Facebook group. You have the most stars and ticks and badges next to your name.
Yeah.
Thank you for contributing.
Absolutely.
We couldn't do it without you in the group. So I'm gonna kind of skim over a little bit and just show you how at home in your guitar room with your picture of your TR6, how you're gonna find these chords. We're gonna start in A. Okay? Let's have an A. Let's start with power chords because there's no minors, majors. We can just go with power chords. A power chord, 5th fret V low E string. That's my 1 chord in the key of A, sorry. That's my 1 chord. My 4 chord, how are we going to find that? Now again, we're going to stick to power chords. I'm going to drop down and find a D power chord. So I've gone down to the A string on the 5th fret. That is my 4.
But count to the 4th note of the scale.
Yeah, that's
A,
the 4th
B,
note. No,
C,
yeah. D.
Sorry
Yeah.
to jump in there, George.
No,
I
you're
thought
fine.
that was
I'm deliberately skipping over some of the theory so you can instantly find, like, you want to play Johnny Be Good without Googling how to play it, you can find these 3 chords.
Sorry.
No, you're fine. You're right to do it. So I've got my 1 and my 4. 5th fret on the E string is an A. Move it down is a D. We then go back up to the 1 chord, 9 times out of 10 for most blues songs. My 5 chord, well, if you look at that power chord you're playing, you've got the root and the 5th. Your 5th is your ring finger. That is an E note. So let's shift that shape to that E. So 7th fret on my A string, that's my 5. So I've got 1, 4, 5, blitzkrieg bop, all that sort of stuff. Now there's no sharps or flats there. You said, what about them? Well, let's say I do that same technique, but I want to start on the 9th fret. That's now C sharp. I drop that down, same positions. That takes me to F sharp. I've gone down to the next power chord, back up to my C sharp, and then going to go down, back to that 4 chord, and across 2 frets. That takes me to G sharp. Now, it's not big and scary, these sharp chords. They're just the position that you're in by coincidence.
I think as well a conversation worth having is whenever we're talking, trying to demonstrate things, we use like the key of C, the key of A, the key of E. That doesn't have a lot of sharps or flats in to make it easier to explain. It's all to do with the parent scale that you're working from, which dictates what notes are sharp and what notes are flat.
Yeah, but essentially, for those of you listening who just want to play some blues, you take those 3 chords as power chords. Now, you can play them as open. That's where you can get a bit more theory-based with it. For my E, my 1 is E, my 4 is A, and my 5 is B. That really helps. When we do our jams, you might see we switch when we're backing each other. I might start in a B flat, but then I might move to open chords there. So that's, Gareth, that's how I do it. Those 3 shapes, and that applies for the whole way up the fretboard. So you've just learned 12 keys in one by
it's like moving the
over a little
pentatonic
bit.
scale around. It's just the same kind of methodology of elbow transposition.
Yeah, fab.
Very good.
Question 2 then.
Question 2. So Alan asked me this in the lead guitar group last night.
Okay.
Which hopefully you got something out of that I answered for you, Alan, but also I thought it was worth reiterating on the podcast because he's an avid listener.
For those of you not in that lead guitar group, Alan asks, how do you use all 5 positions of a scale and how are they interconnected?
So I'm going to use the pentatonic scale to explain this because that's probably what the most... If you know 5 positions of any scale, chances are it's the minor pentatonic, okay? Why is that important? Well, the 5 positions of the pentatonic give you the same... a pentatonic has 5 notes. The fact that it's got 5 notes and 5 positions are not... you can think of it as 5 different places on the neck, okay? We've got 12 frets total before it repeats itself. Yeah. And we're thinking in blocks of 4 notes because we've only got 4 digits to play with. Now, all 5 notes of the pentatonic scale, if you play them in a sequence, we'll start in A minor. A, C, D, E, G. The next octave, A, C, D, E, G. A, C, D, E, G. Now, compare a piano player to a guitarist, it's completely different. The way the notes are laid out on the instrument are completely different. On a guitar, you can play a scale laterally, you can play it horizontally, you can play it diagonally. It's a lot more confusing where all the notes are on the fretboard compared to on a piano, which is literally just up and down. The idea of breaking it into 5 positions is to give you 5 different places that you can play the same notes on the neck. Mm-hmm. So you can play anything all over the neck, but also you can play the same lick in 5 different places.
Yeah, which is really cool.
Sorry.
Oh, one more. Yeah.
You can play those, and you might come up with a lick that you like the sound of, but it's in the wrong place of the neck, and you want to play it somewhere completely different. Yeah. So that's why we're doing that. And you'll notice that, take the first position, for example. 5, 8, 5, 7, 5, 7, 5, 7, 5, 8, 5, 8. Those 7s and those 8s on the back end of the position directly kind of bolt onto, they're the first notes of the next position, and the next position, and the next position. And another way to think about it is if you've got A, C, D, E, G, each of those 5 positions start with one of those 5 notes. That's another way to look at it. Personally, I don't look at it that way.
No, I view it as more opening up the fretboard, unlocking new shapes.
And trying to find routes through.
Yeah.
I think is a really...
That's a really cool point you mentioned, actually. If you find the route, you can start again from that route. Now, some of the notes
I meant route as in like a route to the supermarket.
Not the
but I see what you mean, not like a route note per se. Yeah. But also, we spend so much time teaching people how to play it in first, second position, and even a little bit of that 5th. So we've got expanding both sides. Quite a lot of guitar players aren't too sort of up on their 3rd and 4th positions just because they're getting so much mileage out of the first 3 that they worked on.
If it ain't broke, I'm guilty of it. I don't know all the positions off by heart, but I'll know 3 or 4 notes of each of them for improvisation purposes.
Well, again, Sean from the group, we were working on Purple Haze. You worked on Purple Haze, didn't you?
Tune.
And I said, right, take the first, take that lick, and what I want you to do is, because he's asking, is this in the key of B? Because it starts on a B note. And I'm like, okay, go away, take those first 2 bars and work out every single note, and then use all of that information to tell me what key in. He texts me this morning and says it's in it's E pentatonic and it's in the 4th position. Once you start making those correlations, and he's like, so what's the...
Yeah, because that's G sharp,
what's that?
Isn't it?
It's B flat.
Is it B
it's
flat?
B flat. So what's that? Why is that B flat there? Well, that's because it's the flat and 5th. It's the blue note of the scale. Yeah. And you start making these connections, and this is what separates an intermediate guitar player from an advanced guitar player. It's that analysis. I'm trying to think of a way that I can do song analysis in a video form to show everybody how to do this.
Yeah,
and
it's a big
quite
thing.
Figured out the best way to do it.
I've had a lot of questions recently by coincidence. I keep trying to think of songs, but the first note of a song or the first chord of a song doesn't necessarily mean it's in that key.
Yeah.
Most songs are. I'm really been racking my brains of songs that start on a B and the song's in A. But most people, they play the first chord and they go, oh, we're in C. We might not necessarily...
It's a good starting point.
Most of them are. But like that Purple Haze is a good
rule.
example, actually.
Very good.
Yeah.
Right then, so what was last week's Riff of the Week?
It was...
Riff of the Riff.
Riff of the Riff, as I like to. So, in was No More Tears by Ozzy Osbourne. Zach Wilde on the Les Paul. So we drop down to drop D. See episode 2 for more details.
Excellent.
Cool riff.
So today we're going to have a look at Rebel.
David Bowie.
With an in-tune G string.
Now, was this who was it Bowie that played this, or was it your underrated guitarist from the other week?
No, it wasn't Mick Ronson.
Mick Ronson,
No,
yeah.
it wasn't Mick Ronson, no. Mick Ronson went off to do other stuff. So this is all based around a D chord and an E chord. So I'm going to play a D major chord, and I'm then going to take the middle finger off the second fret of the high E string to give you a D5 chord. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to play a quick, like, down, up, down, like a quick little flurry.
Yeah, nice.
To start with. After doing that, I'm going to do an upstroke. Upstroke on the high E, the third fret of the B, and then the second fret of the B.
Yeah.
So you've got... Yeah, I played a regular D chord there, and it sounded
makes a
gross.
big difference.
I'm then going to change to an E chord and do 2 upstrokes.
Nice.
I'm going to pick the low E. And then I'm going to pull off between the second fret of the B and the open string. And then I'm going to pick the G string where I'm pressing the that first fret
finger
of the G. I might actually catch that E note on the D string on the way back up to sort of round it off. And then you can put a D,
Hot tramp.
A. Oh no, it's
Straight
E,
to E, isn't it? Yeah.
Hot tramp. And you bend that
pull
G.
off, yeah.
So, little bit of a short and sweet one today, guys. And we've got as wood chipper man's having a
it's gonna
field
get
day, and
quieter
I'm
in a
struggling a little bit to try and think.
You might not be able to hear it, but for us, it is quite loud.
It's a bit full on, right? So, what did we talk about today?
We
Josh?
had our set list, of course. Every episode we have a set list. That's what governs what's in the show. We went neck deep, first of all. Gig bag essentials, so spare strings, picks. I don't think we mentioned picks in that, but picks, capos, tuners, throat lozenges, paracetamol, in-ear monitors, a tie. It depends, but the bare essentials, really. It's sort of like your bread and milk of your gig bag. From there, we had our technical focus, which were guitar harmonies. Really, really cool stuff. We looked at Run to You and the Trooper I Maiden. If you've got any other suggestions, I love to hear them because it's just nice to listen to. From there, we looked at Tone Talk, which was our players who inspired us. So I had George Harrison and Brian May. You were Kurt Cobain and Stevie Ray Vaughan. Mm-hmm. We then, of course, had Pick Our Brains, 2 audience questions. Thank you very much. If there's anything you want to know, let us know and we'll try and help you out. Now, especially with 2 weeks ahead, rather than 3 weeks, you might get your answer a bit sooner. And then we had Riff of the Week, Rebel.
Excellent.
Oh, there we go. It's hard to remember all that, you know.
It is. Should we play them out?
Yeah, let's go for it. We'll go back to A. It's a nice key.